Yeah, so going back to July 2020, I was late on my period about 2 weeks, and then Jacob was the one where he was kind of like, okay, maybe you should just take a test and see. And in my mind, I was not even thinking like I could be pregnant.
In my head, I was like, there's no way that, she'd be pregnant. So I wasn't too worried. But yeah, we were in the bathroom and we did the test.
We waited like 3 minutes, I think it was, and then looked at it, and sure enough, it was pregnant.
I remember in that moment, it was just a lot of, it was just shock. I remember just being so doubtful about what was ahead. Usually I'm the type to kind of overthink, and I just thought about all our plans, our relationship, our family and our parents and everything else. And I remember looking at her and I said, Hope, what are we gonna do?
My initial response was, I don't know, I think I was just, comforting Jacob and telling him, it's gonna be okay. I know part of me was just shocked. I didn't know how I felt, but I think God really met me in that moment and just gave me the reassurance that, he was there and that he was still a part of this plan.
I saw Hopi's face, and it just, despite being so scared, I knew that she was there too, and that when she said that we're gonna be okay and we're gonna be together through all this, I did believe her. But in the back of our minds, we were already thinking about the two options of keeping the baby or not keeping it. So we just started to realize that this is way bigger than anything that we had ever dealt with before. I think the entire weight of the future of any possibility was kind of I felt like it was on my shoulders during that time. So even then, at that point, I felt like I wasn't going to be strong enough to carry forward with Hope.
And then, later that day is when God just brought options to mind. I knew that it was a safe place that I can just share everything I was feeling, and that they would point me to Christ. And so I told him, okay, I'm gonna make an appointment at this place.
Yeah, I remember when Hope first told me about options, and originally I thought it was like Planned Parenthood or like one of those centers. But when she told me that it was a Christian center and Evergreen promotes it, which is our church, it gave me more reassurance that it was probably a better place for us to go.
When I first went into the appointment, it just felt like the right place, and like this is where God was meeting me. And the options staff member that I spoke with was so warm and so just comforting, and even told me about her experience, and it just made me feel like she could relate and that I wasn't alone. And the staff member walked me through the steps of abortion, of adoption, and keeping the baby. And so she showed me different figures of what the baby would look like at different weeks, and it just made it so much more real. And it was kind of amazing too that it was like this small, but that baby was inside me. And I think it was during that appointment where God gave me peace about that. And so even though I did get the answers that I came here for, I feel like I got even more in just support and encouragement and prayer. And I think that's what really helped me to decide that I want to choose life.
I remember Hopi coming out, and that was probably one of the hardest conversations that we've had, because she was telling me how she felt encouraged and just moved by her experience here at Options, and I was still very confused and sad about what we were gonna do. And that was the first time I remember where the question of, are we gonna be able to do it together, came into mind. And am I gonna be part of the picture? Do I want to be part of the picture with Hope? Because I loved Hope, and it was just really hard to have something that would split us. So yeah, it was just a lot of questions. Yeah. I was honestly curious about what Hopi had discussed with the Option staff, and I just wanted to know why or how she felt more just empowered and more encouraged to go with choosing life while I was still confused. So my first impressions when I first walked into the Option Center, I just felt very warm. I thought I would feel just like an outsider, being the dad, but I was greeted by the front desk staff, and I just felt really welcomed, and that they wanted me to be here and wanted to hear my story, that I shouldn't feel ashamed. So yeah, when I was actually having a conversation with the two male advocates here at Options, it just felt really encouraging, because it was just the first time that we started to go conversation about life and what fatherhood is and the beauty of it. And prior to all that, I didn't think of it as a blessing for me, that it could lead to something that would be just a huge role in my life. But I remember seeing figures of the little babies, and just thinking in my head, like, it'd be so amazing if I had a baby. And just being able to talk about it and kind of vocalize my actual thoughts kind of led me to imagine a future of choosing life. And it was really just nice to have that, and just felt really uplifting. So yeah, even though I wasn't sure yet, of course, I think what was important for me during that time was just painting a picture in my head of the possibility that this wasn't a punishment, that it was a blessing. And like, what if this was something I was selected for or chosen for? Like, what if everything that I was preparing for was maybe for like fatherhood? So yeah.
There was one day we went to the park by my house that we often go to, and we just sat down, and that day just felt different. It seemed like we were more on the same page. Yeah,
the one thing I can remember really vividly is just, seeing all the kids playing around in the park, and I kept asking Hope, like, can you imagine if we had a baby and he would just be running around too, like, yeah, and just seeing if we didn't have him, like, then he wouldn't be like these kids. So so that really like stuck with me, just imagining and just seeing the kids. So
just him telling me that, it gave me a lot of confidence in us that that we can do it, and that God had given us a baby to give birth to this baby. And so that's the first time that we decided that I was going to keep the baby. That was a really big step for us to decide on choosing life. Theodore, he came right on his due date on March 27th. at 3:58 a.m. when we heard the first cry, when we saw him. It just melted our hearts. We looked at each other. I just remember we were just crying, and in those first moments, I was just filled with just awe, and I felt so in love with him already.
Yeah, it was crazy because, I was there and I felt like I was thrown into the deep end already. I was there to cut the cord, and I was like, I thought I'd be scared. I thought I would be unsure, but I was just like, let's do it. I've waited so long for this, so let's do it. Yeah, and I remember just seeing him just there and how little he was, and I was like, this is really him. Like that's the guy, like he was just so cute. And Theo to me, he's like everything to me right now. Everything that I do in my life, it's for him, I think about the things that I normally did, just like doing school, finishing up my master's, or just interacting with my friends and relationships. I always think about him, just in terms of being a good example, just being someone that he could look up to. It's just in a way that because I love him so much, I want to only give him the best, and just so he could grow up and knowing that he's loved, and that he has both a mom and dad and all his family members that he knows he could rely on.
He is someone that has changed my life, and he has shown me exactly what God has called me to do, and how I am to live out my faith as a mother now, and to love him unconditionally. And every day I wake up and see his smiling face, and he makes me feel just so much joy, and to see how God's redemption is displayed in his life is something I see every day. And it's so beautiful to me that we chose life for him, and that we can now hold him and hear him laugh, and take him places with us, that and that God has blessed us with him, that having a baby wasn't something that we had planned for ourselves, or that we really wanted at the time, or that we expected, but he truly was a gift that we didn't ask for, but that we accepted wholeheartedly, and that we can love on, and that we can just cherish for the rest of our lives.